Hello there, I'm Blackbright, broadcasting out of the UK into your homes. Welcome to my channel. You're welcome to subscribe, share, like, interact with my subscribers. And I just wanted to thank those of you who have been donating, really lovely of you, and to talk about a subject. And I'm talking about this because the other day I did a video and it was about an estranged wife who had turned up at her husband's house in Jamaica. And I titled that video, The Return of an Ex, or When is an Ex Really an Ex? But what that title did was to raise expectations, and some people were disappointed because it wasn't really about when is an ex. Well, it was in one sense, but I think the title raised certain expectations. So what I decided to do was to change the title of that and just tell it like it is. Estranged wife turns up at ex-husband's property or something like that. And then I've decided to call this one When is an Ex Really an Ex? Or words to that effect. So that this is what this video is about, because I don't know how many of you have exes, but bloody hell, they're like some of the exes, you just can't get rid of them, can you? And no matter how you tell them you've moved on, no matter how you tell them you're with somebody, they keep calling, they keep texting. Sometimes you just have to block them. And I don't understand. Sometimes I think it's the chase. Sometimes I think men don't really want you. These exes, they don't really want you. And I'm talking about men to female, because that is the experiences that I've been listening to and I've been talking about. Well, not talking about, but have people talk to me about, as opposed to the other way around. So I'm going to be talking about it from a point of view where the ex, the male ex, wants to come back to the female ex. And sometimes, like I said, you just can't get rid of them. And you would think that, okay, once you're an ex, you're supposed to remain an ex. And I do understand that some exes get back together. And I think some exes get back together depending on the reason why they broke up. And I think sometimes an ex might just try and play on that to see if they can get you back. Maybe they don't even want you. Like I said, maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe they just want to see if they can get you back. Maybe now they know you've moved on and you look happy, they want to put a spanner in the works. But there's a lot of reasons why exes keep coming back. And when is an ex really an ex? So, one of the reasons, well, first you have to ask yourself, why did you break up? Was it because of infidelity, betrayal, domestic abuse, or other abuse? Was it by mutual agreement, or was it simply because you were incompatible? I mean, it really depends on why you broke up as to why an ex should remain an ex, or whether an ex should come back into your life. Of course, that is bearing in mind you haven't moved on and you haven't met somebody else. Other than that, you just never know. But like I said, the reason why you left the ex. I mean, some people say you left that ex for a reason, and that ex should remain in the past and make way for somebody new. A lot of people, though, they have their exes and they still pine over them. It's almost like they can't stop thinking about them. What do they do then, especially if that ex was abusive? So these are the things you have to try and ask yourself. Why am I still thinking about an ex? Is it a sex tie? Is it a soul tie? Sex tie is where the sex was so good that you just want to relive those memories. A soul tie is something a bit more deeper. There's a psychological attachment that you can't understand and you don't seem to be able to get rid of, and that takes a much longer time. So, the reason you broke up should determine why an ex should remain an ex. So, should an ex get a second chance, or a third chance, or a fourth chance for that matter? Or should there be no second chances? Should it just be done and dusted? It didn't work out. It's over. I don't want you back. Is that how it should be? Like I said, it really depends on how long you've been separated. It all depends on whether or not you still love the person, whether you've moved on. All of those things come into play. Why would you want him back? A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to take him back because he must have changed. You know, all these years have passed. He's probably more mature." And they take an ex back based on what they think is his potential, only to find out nothing's changed. A leopard, when they say a leopard can't change its spots, I do believe that some people can adjust if they've gone through a grueling process or grueling process. But the majority of qualities that are in a person are inherent and they're going to remain. But like I said, it all depends. Okay, if he was an abuser and he used to beat you up, maybe he has turned around and seen the error of his ways. But how are you going to know unless you put yourself in that situation? Me, I believe once an abuser, always an abuser. So, and sometimes people go back to their exes because they're on their own and they haven't been able to find anyone else. And you're really setting up yourself for abuse when you do that. Because if you go back to an ex and he believes that, okay, you're taking him back because you can't go anywhere, he's gonna carry on with his same old dotty ways, isn't it? You think he's gonna make any effort when he knows he can't get nobody? He's gonna think, so well, I might as well. She can't get nobody. And so you have some of these women that say, "Me on a tree growing on my face, me on a tree growing on my face." That means they're not ugly and they can more or less get someone else. But sometimes in a relationship over the years, you've developed characters that only that person can understand. And to try and carry those characters into a new relationship, it doesn't work. A lot of people who are new, they can't really adjust to certain foibles in a person's flaw. Well, not even flaws, but supposing you have somebody who's really quite aggressive, and that is just the way they are, and they've been years and years and years with somebody who's kind of got used to it and doesn't really take it on, and that person tries to transfer that same character into a new relationship is unlikely to tolerate it. So sometimes exes go back to the person who used to tolerate their bullshit rather than adjust the way they are, and then they'll say, well, this is the way I am. I saw me steer. You can't change. Why should I change? That's how some of them are. They feel so, well, they've got by in life this far. Why do they need to change? And they keep their obnoxious ways. And, and if it's the right, and some of them are quite slick, they kind of wait long enough and they're probably checking to see whether or not you have anybody. These people, they're probably driving around your house like some kind of, what do those call those people who stalk you? Yes, stalkers. They're probably driving around your house, see if you have any man's car out there or whatever. When they see you ain't got nobody in your life, they come back with their same old ways and you're glad for them because you can't get nobody. Or you feel as though you can't get nobody, or you're too lazy to see if there's anybody out there who's more compatible with you and who will treat you with a little respect and dignity. So you'd prefer to take on someone who's been disrespecting you, ill-treating you, isn't providing for you, isn't doing nothing. They're just sitting there. But you take them back because you're lazy. And a lot of times it's laziness. A lot of times when people take back their exes, it's laziness, it's insecurity, and it's just because like I said, they just can't be bothered. Unless, of course, when you take back an ex, it's based on a misunderstanding, because sometimes you can have an ex and you broke up based on a misunderstanding. You thought he did something, he thought you did something, and you broke up and you never had a chance to talk it through. And then a few years down the line, you buck up, you start talking things through, you realise there was a misunderstanding, and you can reconcile if the flame is still burning for that person. All depends. So, when is an ex an ex? Explain, please. Oh, yeah, I've done that. Okay, so, like I said, maybe it's changed. And also, are there genuine feelings? You know, when exes come back, are there genuine feelings there? Or is it some kind of game? Is it to see if they can actually get that person back? You know, this competitive ego streak. Well, I mean, also she loved me, you know. I mean, also we can get her back if me want her. That's how some men think, you know. They think that they can just turn up and get you because you used to love them at one time. Sometimes things change. Sometimes there's women who love their men forever. But there are also some women who move on, and they move on pretty quickly. So, should you encourage an ex? Because some people, when they break up with someone, they don't want it to look like that they've been rejected, or that um, or that their ex doesn't like them. They seem to get a great big thrill out of saying, "Oh, I still speak to my ex," you know, implying that you're really a nice person because your ex still wants to talk to you. So that when people say that, that is what they're more or less insinuating, that they're really nice and you didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't really your fault why the relationship broke down. Otherwise, your ex would not still talk to you. So it's a kind of an ego thing. It kind of validates them. It makes them feel better about themselves when they're still speaking to an ex, and their ex, they can still have a laugh and a joke. That time the ex having woman and is getting on with his life, but this ex, other ex will still entertain him, will still invite him around her house. And it's bitchiness, you know, when a woman does that. When a woman knows that her man has moved on with someone else and she's opening the door to her ex just because, I think that's a really, really not. It's not good. It's not nice. You know, just because you can do it. So that woman is, you know, is a power play. So, and then what she'll be thinking in her head when she does that, because if that man has his woman, and yeah, if she calls and says, "Oh, you know, come over. You know, I've made a nice meal, or you know, I bought some tickets. We can go here." You know, that's what some women do. You know. And so that man will go to that woman, you know, as far as he's concerned, he feels he's feeding his ego, isn't he? He's feeding his ego because there's this woman that he abused or whatever he did to her, and she still wants him. So he'll go down there for Nyama altar, user altar, whatever. And she's there thinking, oh, well, you know, he can't really like her because he's here with me. That time the man's thinking, you know what? I can get the best of both worlds. Why not? So, well, of course, that depends on the maturity of the man, but a lot of men will think that way. So, you have the ex female who won't let go of the ex male because she wants to know that she can pick him up and drop him anytime she wishes. And that way, he can't move on and she can't move on. So you get these exes and they're still sending texts to each other. Every now and then they're calling and saying, oh, we can still be friends. You know, why can't we still be friends? Crap. It's not nothing about friends. It's manipulation. It's manipulation. It's to keep somebody under your thumb. It's to keep a level of control on both sides. If a man says to a woman, you know, man say, I don't care if you have a man, you know. I still like you. We can still be friends. We still want to call you. We still want to come see you. And I was, oh, really? And I was all flattered. She's all flattered because, oh, he still likes me. Oh, he still wants me, even though I've got someone else. Oh, I tell you, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, for whatever reason, they are insecure. They do need validation and endorsement. And like I said, you don't know what goes on people's lives. But this is what holds people captive. This is why people can't move on. This is why people are stagnant in their lives. They can't make a headway because they're holding on to the past. They're holding on to memories, and they forget the mistreatment, or they minimize the mistreatment. You know, if he didn't show up, he said he was coming and he didn't show up 3 or 4 times, she'd say, oh, well, it's not that bad. I mean, he could have done something else. He could have been beating me up, couldn't he? It's just that he didn't show up and he didn't call me and let me know he wasn't coming. That's the only reason why we broke up. She forgets how she felt. The fact, lack of trust. When somebody tells you they're coming and they don't come, you end up, every time they say they're coming and they don't come, you end up not believing that they're going to come. What does that do to you? What does that do to the relationship? It means you can't believe a word that they say, and it's detrimental. It might seem like a small thing if somebody says they're coming and they don't come. But I mean, common courtesy would lead you to call and say, I'm so sorry. You know, I did intend to come, but something's come up. I'll make it up to you. I'll come and see you another time. Whatever it is, you know. But people who go back to exits, they forget why they broke up. They forget it's things like that. They forget that they were being disrespected. They forget that they were being ignored. They forget that they were being sworn at. They forget that they were, you know, they had to pay for everything. They forget all of these things. All they see is the hunk in front of him, if he is a hunk. Well, he's a hunk to them. And that's enough. All the past, all the negative past has gone out the window. So that ex will never be an ex until she comes to terms with the fact that it's over. She emotionally detaches herself. Until you emotionally detach yourself, you cannot move on from a relationship. So how long should you leave it before it's really over? Is there a deadline? Well, thing is, when you break up with somebody, they used to say some people, they can just switch off as soon as they break up. They can break up on, say, a Friday and meet somebody on a Monday, and they've forgotten the person by the Friday. Depends on your makeup. I don't know if by doing that, it's denial, it's suppressing their feelings, it's kind of, what they call it, it's kind of replacing. I can't think of the word, but anyway, that one person replaces another person, and so they don't have to feel the loss. So they get over that loss by investing time in someone else. So for some people, it might take a couple of days. For some people, it could take months. For others, it could take years to get over someone. It all depends the impact that person had on their life. There's a positive impact or a negative impact. The only thing I would suggest is that you don't move on with somebody else until you have emotionally got over that person. Once you've got emotionally got over that person and you're not thinking of that person coming back, or you want him to come back, or you want her to come back, or that's in the back of your mind, until you've got over that phase, you should not entertain another relationship, really, for health reasons, because you know what will happen if you end up going into a relationship and you still have thoughts of that other person and you're still thinking, I wonder if he's going to come back, I wonder if I should take him back, you know, I do love him, but blah blah blah. What would happen is you'll be in a relationship with somebody and that guy comes back and you're more likely to leave this guy, regardless of how good he is, for the person who's no good, just because you haven't got over him. So you need to get over him first, or over her first, before you entertain a new relationship. So that you're going into a new relationship fair and with an open heart. Because you can be unfaithful through just through thought alone. I remember somewhere in the Bible it says, you know, a man can be unfaithful with just his thoughts. Yeah, I think it's something like that, infidelity of thoughts. Just by seeing somebody or thinking about sex or something. I think it's one of the commandments. I can't remember now. But my point is that that's a similar thing. If you're in a relationship with one person, you're thinking about another. That is infidelity. and it's unfair. So you shouldn't be doing that. So, like I've mentioned, if it, taking somebody back just because you can't get somebody else. Talked about sometimes you forget why you've broken up. I've talked about the emotional attachment. Moving on. Could your ex take you from someone new? Yes, I've touched on that. What about these exes that want you back regardless of what you say? Really persistent. Sometimes I think that is a power play. I'm not quite sure if I mentioned that, but yeah, I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's healthy at all. And some men, they get a kick out of it. They want you to have someone else. And I think sometimes those men that know that you're with someone else and they still want you, I think it's some kind of sick game, isn't it, really? Because, and it's also gives them an opportunity to be non-committal. It also gives them an opportunity to make out like you're something special why they want you, and really they're feeding their own ego. They might be getting a bit on the side. I don't know how that works, but some men will do that. Some men will say, oh, I know you're seeing somebody else, but I'm here if you need me, if ever you want anything. Somebody said that to me, and I'm not saying it to disrespect the person, but I just don't understand that. If you say to somebody, I'm seeing someone else and I'm not going to see you again, I mean, on the one hand, you could look at it as a positive. You could look at it as just knowing that there's somebody there for you. But I don't think that should be an option. I don't think that person should be saying, look, if anything goes wrong, I'll be there. Because it's a bit like, I was talking about the men, the mothers who enable their sons to depend on them so that they don't make an effort in any future relationships. In essence, that's what that person is saying. That person is saying to whoever, if it doesn't work out with your boyfriend or your man, and you want someone to talk to, or you want me for anything at all, if you need anything at all, just call me, and I'll be here. What kind of message is that sending? So I don't understand exes that actually would be satisfied with that kind of situation. You care enough for that woman that you'll do anything for her, and if anything falls through, you're more or less saying you'll take her back. Why aren't you getting on with your life? Why aren't you meeting other people? I don't know. Anyway, like I said, some people, what's your back regardless of what you say, some people minimize the reason you broke up. I think I mentioned that as well. They're always late. Sometimes they don't show, they're disrespectful, they lie, they're insulting, they're narcissistic, they're abusive, they're lazy, and they're dependent. Sometimes you can get these men, you forget. They're so nice and loving to you that you forget that every bloody week they were asking you for money. You forget because you remember the loving side of it. You remember the attentive side of it. You forget that they weren't working. And then because you're meeting them, they might say they might have a piece of a job or something. They might have something. They might be doing something. You'll think, oh, they've changed. And he was so nice to me when we were going out. The only thing that was wrong is that he didn't have a job and he was asking me for money. But now he's got a job, so everything's going to be okay. And what happens? You take the person back. 2 2s, the man loses a job because there's something in his personality why he can't keep a job. Next thing you know, you're stuck with it and you end up paying him, giving him money every 5 minutes. The same reason why you're done with him in the first place and you forgot. Just because he's loving and attentive. You have to remember why you finish with these people, guys. I believe when you leave someone, regardless of how small it is, you left that person because there was something that didn't gel with your values. You were incompatible. The fact that you can't remember what it was is of no consequence. You ended it for a reason. And like I said, if there's a misunderstanding, like sometimes you can see these films and they have a row and then they walk off. I don't call that an ex because you've just had a row. But I call an ex someone who you've actually ended it. You haven't seen them for maybe a couple of months or longer. You haven't been in touch with them for a couple of months or longer. To me, that is an ex. So, yeah, so how do you close the chapter? You close the chapter, you can block the phone calls and the text messages if the person is persistent. You can ignore messages. Some people, you have it because you feel as though you've got to be polite. And that's a form of control. Sometimes you get exes who use it as a control. They know the type of person you are. And they know if you say, oh, hi, babes, or hi, darling, how are you? They know that you cannot ignore that kind because it seems to be coming from a nice place. It's coming from a friendly place. It's coming from a loving place. How can you ignore someone who says, good morning, darling, how are you? I just wanted to find out how you are. You get men doing that. And then you write back, oh, I'm okay, thank you. So how are you? What are you doing later? Or how are you getting on with your man and all this kind of crap? And then they just try to wean their way in. It's all a test to see how interested you are, not only in your new man, but whether or not they have a chance to get you back. And it's control. Some of these exes, that's what they do. They use all these nice, sweet words, flatter you. And that's why I said you have to have a good sense of self. You have to be strong. You can't need endorsement. You can't need validation. Because if you do, you'll be going from back to front all the time. You'll be going round and round in circles and you won't know your arse from your elbow. So, refuse friendship suggestions. These ones about, oh, I'm sure we can be friends. What's wrong with us being friends? That's another one that they always say. What's wrong with us being friends? I've learned very quickly. It's got nothing to do with friendship. It's control. They just want to keep you in their space. And if you were friends, you wouldn't have bloody separated because friends, especially when you're friends and you're in a relationship, that's the best relationship. If you're a friend to the person you're partnering with, that's the best relationship. So if you've broken up, what kind of friendship is that? How can you form a friendship? I don't need anyone to call me. I don't need anybody to talk to. I can talk to my man. I don't need anybody to take me out. I can go out with my man. So what do I need you for? And that's how you have to think. The only time you need people like that is where there's something lacking in your relationship. So you have to ask yourself, what is lacking in my relationship? And am I in the right relationship? Am I compatible with the person I'm with? Because if somebody can come out of the blue, or if an ex can say to you, oh, look, I'm in the area, call you up. I just thought I'd call you. And I thought I'd take you out for a nice meal. You remember that nice restaurant you used to like? I'm going to take you there. That time, the new man that you're with, if he's working or wherever he's gone or whatever he's doing, he ain't taking you to no restaurant. And so when this ex turns up and he knows you and talks about, oh, you're going to go to a restaurant, you skin up and, oh, really? Well, that would be nice. So when we come pick you up in about half an hour, is that all right? You're saying yes, and both. It's downhill from there. You might as well forget about the new bloke. You're with somebody who's not giving you what you need. You need to be in relationships with people who satisfy your needs, whatever those needs are, no matter how small or how big, because you don't want these exes turning up who know you, who know what you want, who know what you like, and then they turn on the charm when they're having a bad day with someone else. and try to see if you're available. That's what they do. So, why does an ex come back? Usually it's because they realise they've made a mistake and the grass ain't greener on the other side. They realise that you had some qualities that they never appreciated, and they don't really want to say that they never appreciated your qualities. So they come up under some guy's world, oh, I miss you, I miss you. It's like, I long for see you. And then depending on where you are, what place you're in at that moment, you might be even glad for him to know, say, miss you. You know what I mean? That time, it's got nothing to do with them missing you. It's because the person who they thought was better than you ain't better than you. So they come between their head, between their knees, and then because they don't really want to admit, they're not going to say, oh, look, I'm sorry I broke up. I'm sorry I left you for someone else. It didn't work out. And she made me realise what I missed in you. You're the person I want. And the thing is that when I think that with exes, once you've broken up and when you try to go back, that man is never going to get that loving and attention that he got before he broke up and left her for someone else. Because she can't be bothered, because she's going to think, I gave that man 100% and it wasn't good enough. He left me for someone else. So why should, and if he does want me, and if he's coming back and saying, oh, I really want you, is it ever going to be the same? It might take years to build up that trust or to build up those moments again. Unless, of course, there's incredible chemistry and incredible love still, regardless, then maybe it might be a bit different. But for the most part, sometimes you've spoilt it. So, sometimes they just can't even get anybody else. They're lucky that you picked them up. Honestly, sometimes men don't even realise how lucky they are when they meet a woman who's taken them and they're willing to kind of build them up and encourage them and do things for them, and they take it for granted. And then they think that because they've met somebody who is willing to do everything for them, they just think, oh, I'm the bee's knees. And they think that they can go off and anybody will accept them. And they don't realise that that person was put in their life to enable them, to make them into a better person. But sometimes, it's like throwing the pearls to the swine. If you waste your time and energy on the wrong person, it's a waste of time. So you can build up your man and you can make him look good. A lot of women, they love doing that. They meet a man and they don't like the way he looks, but they always say they can change his clothes, but they can't change his character. So sometimes, you can meet somebody who's got, a nice character, but not a good dress sense. And so you can help dress them up or whatever. And then they get kind of bossy and they kind of go off. And then the next thing they know, they've met somebody else and that person maybe doesn't like that character, even though you did and you accepted it. And so they find it doesn't work out. Next thing they know, they're coming back and talking about, oh, how much I miss you. I mean, these exes are something else. So when should you take an ex back? When it didn't get off of the ground and you didn't give it a chance. Because sometimes an ex isn't really an ex when you haven't really got it off the ground. You might have just been a bit, like sometimes you think you know what you want. And so you meet somebody and they don't, they do something to upset you. And you just say, look, I can't be arsed, so I'm not going to bother with this. But you haven't really given it a chance. And so in that kind of circumstance, that is a way of seeing if it can work. I don't think that is a proper ex. If there's other misunderstandings and you made an impetuous decision, I think that is a reason you can take an ex back. And when you shouldn't take an ex back is out of pity or guilt or loneliness, when they come back and they look sorrowful and pitiful and they might be bawling or whatever. I mean, it's really hard not to say no when an ex is doing all of that. But you have to think about why you left them and whether or not they're in the place that can help you where you are. I mean, really, if you left them, whoever left whoever, and they weren't helping you reach a level where you wanted to reach, and the two of you weren't working together, because relationships are about partnerships. They're not just about relationships, they're about the two of you coming together and working together and building up each other. So if one person is doing all the work, that's not going to work. So you have to ask yourself, when you're taking them back and you know that they are unable to provide, they're unable to support you in the ways, they're not house proud, or they leave their clothes all over the place, or they don't wash up after them, or they use the sink and they don't rinse out the sink, or they leave their clothes on the floor, whatever it is. You have to think, when they're there bawling in front of you, whether you want to go through all of that again. So it's hard, but you have to kind of be strong. Now, if you have genuine feelings for that person and whatever reason, and you think that it can work, then that is totally different. But that shouldn't have anything to do with the tears, and that shouldn't have anything to do with how guilty you feel. You feel guilty to take them back. That should be coming from a genuine love of that person. So whether that guy cried or made you feel guilty, you would have still taken him back. Even if he'd come and said, look, I've been thinking about it. I messed up and I want you back. Plain, straight face. So the same way he would come in that format, or whether he comes with, begging you on his knees, your response should be the same. You shouldn't give in to somebody just because they look helpless, and that, because it's a very dangerous road, and some people, they use it to get you back. Some people will play on your emotions, play on your femalehood, and you can't let that happen. Otherwise, you're on a downhill spiral, girls. So what is the motive for return? Is it the ego, to see if I can get you back? Competition, to prove that you're better than the one that they've chosen? So don't get involved with someone else until you've gotten over your ex. Don't dwell on the past. Look forward to a new future with someone else. Stop holding on to memories. And a lot of people, they take men back, or they take female back because they think they've changed. Some people assume that over a few years they must have changed, they must have matured, they must have got better. And they're no different, exactly the same. So don't take them back because you think they've changed. Some people sit there with wishful thinking, oh, I wish you would come back. That's what other people think. So you do have women who hold on to an ex, but you're giving away your power. Some exes come back when you've just got over them, and that's a bloody nightmare. You just got over them, you're just, getting on with your life. You met somebody nice, somebody who's almost perfect for you, and then in comes your ex, and sometimes, you didn't expect the relationship to end. But that's what I mean. Sometimes when you have people come back into the relationship, why are they coming back? Are they embarrassed that you're not together? Is it pride? Is it possessiveness? They can't stand to see you with somebody else. Some of them, they come up so quick and they catch you off guard. They're talking about moving in, and you don't even have a chance to say move on. Sometimes it's a test to see whether or not you still like them, to see whether or not you still care for them. That's all it is, a test. Can I still get her back? After they get you back, they lose interest. Sometimes it's just like that. Sometimes it's just you're actually complimenting them by taking them back. Because as far as they're concerned, why? She take me back, I must be good. I must be nice. I can't be that bad for her because she take me back. Some people see it as a compliment. You're actually endorsing them when you take them back after they've treated you like crap. Sometimes they want what they can't have. You know, now you've moved on and you're not interested. Now they want you. Sometimes it's a fear of abandonment. The fact that they're going to be left alone. That's why they're hanging on to you. Or they want you back. Sometimes exes find you more attractive when they're not even with you. You know how many exes, after they've left you, they kind of see qualities in you that they didn't see when they were with you. Sometimes it's fear of rejection. Yeah, sometimes couples break up. They actually break up the relationship because they believe that the guy is going to reject them, or that he believes that she's going to reject him, and it's self-sabotage. So they'll do something in the relationship to break it up. And then after they've broken it up through self-sabotage, they realise what they've done, and then they want to come back. That's another thing. You know, all of these things that people do because they've got issues from the past. I was watching, as I say that, I was watching Bachelor in Paradise, and there's this girl called Katie, very pretty girl. And she was with this guy and getting on really, really well. And he said to her, I'm really, really into you. I can see us, I'm leaving here. I can see us getting married. I can see us having kids and all of that stuff. And she really liked him. You know what she said? Well, you know, since we're in paradise, there'll always be someone coming in. And if somebody comes in, you know, I won't stop you from exploring that. You can take her on a date. And he said to her, I'm really disappointed to hear you say that. He said, and then they have this part where they go off and talk by themselves. And he said he wanted somebody who would fight for him tooth and nail and actually stop him from going off to see someone else. So that put doubts in his mind about how serious she was about him, and how could she care about him to say something like that. She then goes back to the little group and says, oh no, I think I've messed up. I told Clay that I couldn't that he could talk to anybody who comes in. If any new lady comes in, he could get to know them. And I didn't really mean it. I'm self-sabotaging. It's because I'm afraid to be rejected. I'm afraid that he'll leave me. What happens? Pretty girl comes into Bachelor in Paradise. Who does she choose to go on a date? Her man. Off they trot. She's there crying. Oh, you know, he's going off. I don't want him to go on a date. I should have told him now. The group is now saying, you should tell him exactly how you feel. Tell him exactly how you feel, because he's got feelings for you. Meanwhile, the woman he's gone on a date with, she set up a hot bath. She's massaging his neck. She's kissing his neck. She's kissing his ears. She's wrapping her legs around him. Hear him. Oh, maybe I wasn't so into Katie after all. I'm like the new one. He goes back with the new one hand in hand. Katie runs over to him. Hi, I want to talk to you. Now she's going to tell him how she feels. So she's saying to him now, oh, I really do like you, Kay. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that you could go off and talk to anyone else, because I really didn't mean it. And I really do like you. I really, really like you. I self-sabotage. I do that. I was afraid of rejection. And he looked her straight in the face and said, well, I was disappointed, and you obviously don't know what you want, and I'm actually having a good time with this new lady, whatever her name is. So she blew it. Self-sabotage. And that's what I mean. Sometimes you can sabotage a relationship, and then you want to go back and it's too late. Your ex doesn't, you know, and that happened in a very short space of time. But you know, in these reality shows, everything happens at supersonic speed. So, but that's what happened. So he doesn't want her back, and she's lost him. So she's now an ex, and he don't want her. He wants a new one. So I'm just using that to illustrate why exes, sometimes exes go back because they've self-sabotaged, they realise they've self-sabotaged and they want to put it right, and it's usually too late. They probably, and when they do that, sometimes they're expecting that person, because they were so in love, that person to come begging them back or saying, oh, don't leave, don't leave. I want you back, don't leave. And it don't go like that. And you're left with that decision that you made. So the goal is to invite the right person who will improve your life to be your partner, create the kind of life you want to live. If your ex comes along and he can fulfill your goal, then that's excellent. If they're online, if they've reached a part where they're in line with your goals, then that's great. But if they are still not a good fit and are incompatible, then you'll have to go your separate ways. You need to live the life you want to match that with the person who can help you create that life. And that's all for now. I hope within all of that, it made some sense. Because sometimes I go on a tandem, don't I? All right then. Bye-bye.